besties, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. If you guys are seeing my face for the first time, hi, my name is Maya and I like to talk about books here on the internet. Are you guys ready? Because I'm so ready. I am so ready to finally wrap up all of these wrap-ups. And I say that, of course, at the very end of another month, which means, you guessed it, another wrap-up. However, we're gonna have a break from wrap-ups after this video, I do promise, because we have other things in the works. It just took me a good long minute to get everything together, to get everything cemented in my head of how I wanted to structure this video, because surprisingly, we have a lot to discuss. Let's dive in. We're doing a 2-month merge together wrap up. We read one book, and it wasn't even off of the TBR. For the spring equinox qualifications, we literally have 2 courses that we need to complete. So we have alchemy and we have restoration. So I already have the syllabus for 2026 pulled up. So for alchemy, our course focus is alchemical reiteration, and the reading prompt is to choose a reread. So for this prompt specifically, I have decided that I am going to be pulling out a rollover book that we literally have been rolling over since the beginning of the year. I'm not even kidding. And that is The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand, Restoration. And that course focus is restorative adoration. And for this, I need to ask for 5 titles and pick one, and in parentheses, it says 5-star. So the way that I am interpreting this is that I am going to have a pile of 5-star predictions, and then I need to pick one. And so that is where you guys are going to come in. Actually, I'm going to be putting the poll up to you guys here in this video so you guys can comment in the comment section, but then I'm also going to be putting it in a short, and whatever comments I get there I will also take into account. Plus that, I am going to be posting that short also onto my Book Talk account, and we're going to be getting comments from there as well. So I am really hoping we get a pool of possibilities of where answers can come from, because I know I am definitely a tinier channel. So I may not have a bunch of different comments on every single platform, but I'm hoping that all of the platforms combined can give me a good pool of answers. And if it really just does come to such a tie that I feel like I need to do something about it, I can always put all of the 5 titles on a spinner wheel. And you're probably thinking, why didn't you just do that to begin with? Well, I like to involve you guys. The first is Alchemized by Sin Lin Yu. The second choice is going to be The Raven Boys by Maggie Steve Otter. Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner. So, of those 5, y'all get to take your picks of what you would like. I didn't finish any of those books that month. I didn't even start any of those books that month. Let's be so freaking for real. But I did find something else, and that something else is called the Paid Readers Club. And this essentially is a service where you get to choose a book, you get to read it, you get to review it, and you submit that, and then you get approved or not based on your reviews, and you get paid. This is legit. So I'm excited, and I am actually going to be saving my review money for something special. So the book that I read, and I have my computer right over here, Journey in Rhyme, Poems of Reflection by Dr. Andrew C.S. Coe. Boy, howdy. So I gave this book 2 stars. I was actually very disappointed with the content of it, mostly because I read the foreword and it was very honestly pretentious and promised more than I felt I got within the reading. It was an author that seemingly was already acclaimed in certain areas of practice. Like, obviously it says doctor, so in the medical field he was highly acclaimed, but then also too, it seems like from the forward, this wasn't his original debut work. I was kind of expecting a little bit more than I got, but this was a book full of Christian poetry. And okay, the Christian part actually does come into play because it is all based off of a Christian perspective of certain platitudes, life scenarios, and what I was disappointed by, and I think it was because I read the foreword, what I was disappointed by was the shallowness of the content, the redundancy, and just the lack of anything original for me. And listen, I am not the be-all end-all judge of poetry, okay? I'm not. I literally just started getting into poetry earlier this year alone. I read Robert Frost's selected poems, his earlier works really. I read Dante's Inferno, and I got more out of those works than I got out of this work, and I was very disappointed because I wanted more from this author, especially when the foreword was again, the only word I can think of is pretentious as it was. I mean, if you're gonna make promises and you're gonna talk a certain way, back it up. Like, I don't like pretentiousness in forewords of any kind. I don't like pretentiousness in comments of any kind when someone goes to talk about their skills or their abilities. I don't like that. It rubs me the wrong way, but I can respect it a little bit more when it can be backed up. This was not backed up at all, and quite frankly, some of the content itself that literally was based off of low-hanging fruit platitudes of Christian circles was made to be almost unrecognizable, and not in a good way. Like, it was trying to be smarter about something than it was. It's like when someone who is just experiencing an aspect of life for the first time is trying to explain it and thinks they know everything about this certain element of life, and within the room, literally everyone who has had that life experience and has had more time to sit with that element of life is looking at this person like, oh, bless your heart, you're just young, you'll learn. And this type of language, it's very top-downy, it's very demeaning. It's like you're trying to speak smarter than you are about a topic that you just learned about, think that you know just based off of a definition, or you really just like truly believe that you're all that in a bag of chips and you're just not. And that's the best way I could describe it, you know, because we've all had those moments where we've talked with someone that sounded like that. Okay, let's just be honest, and that's kind of what this gave. I will admit that I think a lot of my judgment is based off of that forward, clearly. And so maybe if you don't read it, it'll be a little bit more of a step above. But like I said, the 2-star is actually quite generous. Like, honestly, if I were to actually give my full star rating, and if Amazon allowed me to do half stars, it would be 1.5. Because what was that? Why are we so redundant? Why are we using imagery and metaphor that not many people can relate to? And also that doesn't make sense, because why are you comparing gardening to the medical field? I get what he was trying to do. I get that he was trying to insert his own personal experience into Christian metaphor and imagery, but the thing of it is, and I don't think this author got it, when it comes to how Jesus spoke in parables and stories and imagery, he was talking to an audience of an agrarian society. He was speaking metaphors and imagery and parables and stories that would capture the attention of the people and would get them to associate his principle with what they would know and understand. That's where he was coming from. It wasn't just some type of just random metaphor at the time. So him trying to personalize something that was meant to be a very real, very relatable, very understandable life lesson and principle to a personal life experience that none of us know about you. Like, if we're just coming to this book for the first time, if we don't know you like that, me, then what would I know about your personal life and experience? Also, what would I know about the medical field? Nothing. I literally know nothing. I know what was on ER. Okay, like, and that's not real life. Okay, I don't think. If that is, that's actually very concerning, and I'm very concerned for our medical professionals out there. God bless you all, truly. Bless all your hearts. Boy, howdy. But I'm being so for real, though. Like, why are you assuming a lot on your audience about your own personal life and experience when with the Bible and with Jesus talking to these audiences, he was meeting them in their lifestyle and in something they would understand. You're expecting us to meet you where you are, you know, and it was just a little disappointing in that way, because I don't know if that connected, and it just didn't really connect with me. Like, it just I felt so removed from all of that. And then on top of that, to have such a pretentious forward, it was a mess. It truly was. So, 2-star. Boy, howdy, did my life change, because we got to play both of our TBR games. I have a little bit of a rollover read kind of TBR going on here. Firstly, for final FMC, I had decided that for my final girl prompt, the witchy occult prompt, I was gonna go with The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I decided for the killer prompt, which I believe the prompt was prompt number 3, add a book to your TBR that talked about grief or loss. I decided I was going to go with The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. Then we continued to roll, and actually the next book was supposed to be the first book for my final FMC prompt, but then we switched it because I needed to add a book to my TBR that had some version of law enforcement for me to get the weapon to attack the killer with. I decided to go with The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Then we had, last but not least, for our final FMC game, The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This was to fulfill a prompt of the killer, actually, and that was to add a book to our TBR that featured some type of ghost or supernatural entity. And then we further played on and we got to the Lord of the Reads 1.0. The first roll obviously got us onto the bookshelf jar space, and that just means I choose a book of my choice from my physical or audio TBR, and I chose Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Then we landed on a space that I just absolutely refused to do, which was the prompt card space, because the prompt was freaking read a book with short stories in it, and I have nothing on my physical TBR that I can think of that I haven't already read and want to reread. I have no thought process or ideal on the horizon that has come my way in terms of recommendations, and I don't want to really read a collection of short stories at the moment. I'm kind of ready for bigger books because I've been reading a lot of manga and novellas and poetry. We'll talk about that in my April wrap-up. But, you know, I've been reading a lot of short works, so I'm ready. I'm ready to take on a bigger, chunkier book. So we're just throwing that prompt out the window, but then we freaking landed on the mission space. This mission card prompt may be the actual literal physical death of me, because it is to read your lowest rated book on your TBR. The first book that we have was The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. We did indeed finally read this book, and if you guys don't know, this is a modern retelling of the original classic, A Christmas Carol, and I am so impressed with this author more than I was the initial first time. So my first read was a long time ago. I gave it a 5-star. The second time, I gave it a 5-star, but it's actually a higher 5-star, maybe even a 6-star, because when I tell you reading the original classic for the first time in January and then being able to kind of not compare, but just have a base reference for this story was so amazing. And I've watched A Christmas Carol for years prior to this, so I knew the classic. Who doesn't know the classic, right? But to be able to experience the actual story of A Christmas Carol, the book, the original classic, for the first time, after having watched the movie adaptation that I believe is actually the closest to the book, to then go to this was very, very interesting. And at first, I was in the mindset of, okay, so this is just a modernized retelling of someone who had seen the original, but it's not as if it's being lived out. No. It's being lived out. It is a modern retelling of an original classic in the truest sense of the word. You just have to really remind yourself that this is a modern version of it. Therefore, modern society is going to look different than historical context and settings. It just will. And this author does a great, amazing job of bringing the present and the past of both stories together and intertwining them and referencing the original classic itself in a modernized world and setting with characters that are a little bit dramatized, if you will. Their stereotypes in real life are very much able to be seen, but they are dramatized so that no one feels too called out. But also that you can just see kind of the silliness of that type of lifestyle and thinking and what that can lead to and life choices surrounding that. And I just thought this author did a great, amazing job with it. Then I also read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, the graphic novel rendition. And this was illustrated by David Wenzel, adapted by Charles Dickson. And it was a 3. There is just so much going on in my head about why this could have been a higher rating if it literally was not for the formatting. So the actual summary of this, let's start there. And The Hobbit, we follow along our main character, Bilbo Baggins, as he is kind of recruited into this group of dwarves to reclaim their homeland that they lost because of dragon fire. So they go on this long, dangerous quest to reclaim Erebor for the dwarves, and along the way we meet a lot of characters, and you might want to pay attention to all of the characters that you meet because they will be important in the Lord of the Rings, which is the preceding books, because this is the prequel. That is a very mild, watered down version of the events that go on in this book. And I will say, or not just this book, but The Hobbit in general, but I don't want to spoil it too much. What I will say of this, and I have always said this, I thought the movies were better than the books. Hands down, I enjoyed them because there was a lot more character involved with all of the characters. Like, I will not take this from J.R.R. Tolkien. I think he is a genius of words, especially when it comes to setting and place and immersing yourself into a world, almost to the point of maybe potentially for some readers boredom, because you are really experiencing the journey of walking to the location or riding horseback or however you are getting there. Whatever mode of transportation that you are using, you get the experience there. But of course, this isn't in the age of cars or airplanes, so you don't get there quickly, which is the whole point, because there's so much that happens along the way. And while the action scenes do the actioning and you get a sense of space and environment and plot, it's great, it's amazing. But for someone who really needs their characters to have character it was such a drudge. It was such a, oh my goodness, this is what this book is. Okay, but like, give me some character, please. Give me some sass, give me some banter, give me some weight, give me some back and forth, give me something. I need something. And I was begging for it in this book too. But honestly, I can't even really fault the authors of this novel, of this manga, because, I mean, you work with the original. If the original doesn't give you character, is it really your job to insert character based on that? Now, I did look this up. This actually came out before the movies, but for some reason this actually read like the movie itself. So I don't know if the director read this prior. Like, he's a big Lord of the Rings buff. I would assume he was reading every single rendition with every single new cover. He was into the lore, I am sure of it. So probably how the world came about was probably a big fat yes. He did read this and maybe got inspiration, because this read so much like the movie plotline, and I was very excited about that. I was also very excited to see the world and the characters. That way we could focus a little bit more on characterization. Still lacking in that department, so that's why it's not rated as high as it could be. The other reason, my goodness, the freaking formatting. I could go off. Don't make me go off. I won't go off. I won't get on that soapbox, not right now, but oh my word. So there was that. Then, you guys, one of the prompts that I got for one of my games, it was for the Lord of the Rings, right? I said that really weird. I was about to say rings, and then I corrected myself because I knew it wasn't rings. The Lord of the Reads 1.0. We got a missions tile space, and we got Frodo. And his prompt was to read the lowest rated book on your TBR. Well, last month, let's just say, we had decided that I was going to be moving back to my childhood home for medical reasons. We were able to go over there, we were able to pack everything, we were able to move everything out. It was a great, amazing time. It was a stressful time as well. We're not even gonna pretend that it was not. A lot was going on. Also, my mom was traveling a lot, so there was just a lot going on, right? And I decided that I was going to just check Audible, and I was just gonna look up, you know, what could I get on here that was the lowest rated, and just count that, because I have a lot of Audible credits. I might as well. Lo and behold, I did find a book. I did. And it was called Star Wizard 1. And I think there was more to the title. But you guys are seeing that on the screen now. You guys, there was no rating at all whatsoever, and no reviews. And the actual description that was given for this book was that this is going to be an AI-generated voice reading this. So I knew I was going to take one for the team or know the reason why. Tell me why it became my guilty pleasure book. I couldn't even tell you either. So the summary is, in short, a virtual game that has a lot of futuristic, scientific-y things that allow it to merge with reality is created. So it's a virtual reality meshing type of book. Want to know what else it has? The game is very much D&D coded. The rewards are experienced in real life. Monetarily, you know what I'm saying? Amongst other things. The characters are created through the game, can be transferred into real life, and somehow it actually somewhat makes sense. Now, I will say, as far as, like, technicality-wise of the book, I will say the logistics of this is very, very shaky foundation at best. However, if you just read it as I did, as someone who really wasn't expecting anything, like the bar to be so low, it was a fun, amazing time. Okay, it was. Because you were following along a character that you just would not expect. You would not think of a little older character, a little bit of health disability things, but with a interesting past of growing up that allows you to see how, if that wasn't an issue, how he could actually be pretty decent in a D&D style type of game with quests for money and stuff like that, but then also merging into the fact that, you know, some of the characters for the virtual reality came from his original reality, but now they're like transformed forever from what they were before to what they are now. I can't say too much because that would be spoilers if you guys actually did look this up, which I actually highly encourage you to do so, because if you get over the fact that it is AI, that is the voiceover, it's actually not that bad, first of all, to have the AI voice. It never really is, but you can tell that it's just different. It doesn't hit emotionally in the same way, but I don't think it has to. For this type of book, truly, it's just one of those things where it is truly a guilty pleasure type of book. It's one of those things where you just have a good time with it, but you don't want to admit that you did. 4-star. 4-star from me. It might actually be a little bit higher if I think about it a little bit longer, but definitely it was above average in terms of just my time with it. And I'm not even gonna lie, like, even with some of the clearly interesting writing techniques and choices, and the AI not really reading it in the way that it's supposed to be read because it is AI, it's not a human reading it, so they don't have the dialects. You know how sometimes for like GPS or something, there is a specific place that has a specific way of saying it, but like they say it so wrong. It's almost like when people say, instead of tortilla, tortilla. Grinds my ever freaking gears. However, I can actually forgive an AI because they know no better. It was just bound to happen because of how it was spelled, not, you know, just, yeah. Anyway, don't even get me started on that. Now let's go to the paid readers club books, and I have all of my books off screen right here. My computer's right here. That's what I'm looking at. I read the Biblio Diet Cookbook. I gave that a 4-star. I did like the formatting. I did have a few correctional things for certain recipes and things that I would just personally like to have as someone who is new to cooking in general. Not because I'm new to cooking, but because, you know, when I come to a recipe for the first time, it's almost like when I drive to a new location for the first time. I need to have the GPS. I need to have someone else in the car. I need to, like, literally circle the building at least 5 times to find a good parking space. And then, you know, ask directions 50,000 times, even though it's literally right on the map, and there's signs literally with arrows pointing everywhere. So that's kind of what I think of when I come to something like a recipe for the first time. I am a little nervous, I am a little hesitant, but once I got it, I'm like, okay, out of the kitchen, one butt only. Yeah. Another that is not necessarily what you think of as a typical book was a Would You Rather Princess Edition book. And I was so surprised when I saw these on my like list of books that I could choose from. And from that point on, I was recommended so many word searches, so many different gaming stuff and coloring books even. I'm literally I'm reviewing a coloring book right now, but the thing is I choose to review them because, well, let's just say I have an adopted sister, not a actual adopted sister, but I have a sister who adopted me. I have a friend who adopted me as a sister, like, within the first day of meeting each other, and she was like, you are my sister now, and I was like, okay, yeah, I bet, let's go. And we have been calling each other that ever since. We're in each other's lives a lot. Well, she has a son, and he is my nephew, and he literally calls me Auntie Maya, and I have been reading some books that are similar to the age ranges that I think he would be able to understand. He's still very young. He's like 3, but he's already, you know, formulating words and sentences and thoughts and ideas, and he's very articulate. Like, all of us are just like, oh, prodigy. But also at the same time, you know, they're not pushing that on him. They're just encouraging if he wants to read, and he seems to really like to read. So I've been like looking into other books and things so that it's like noted, okay, I can start sending them over as like little care package gifts or something like that, or even birthday gifts or holiday gifts or whatever. And it's really opened my eyes to what children's literature is nowadays. And that's so good to know. Like, as a young adult who has, you know, nieces and nephews through other friends, and someone who's friends with other people who are teachers, who work alongside kids, it is very, I think, wise to know what it is that is, you know, popular and prevalent in all forms of literature, not just, you know, adult and fantasy and sci-fi and murder, mystery, and thriller and all of these different things. You know, I think it is good to expand your reach and know what is out there for all ages. And, you know, if ever the timing is right and whatever, and if ever I get a husband and have the capability of making a little one of my own, you know, then I would be aware of what's out there and what's going on. And I think it's wise to know what's out there and what's going on, especially when you have kids. But even just as an auntie, you know, knowing what literature I'm giving to my little nephew, you know? And I gave it a 4-star. And it was really fun. It was definitely very redundant, but I think you have to be a little bit more forgiving when you're working with children's literature. You know, there will be repetition, there will be redundancy, but they love that. They have fun. There's other activities that you can do with them. And because I have a nephew who definitely loves having that interaction with you as you're doing something, I can see where if this was like a Prince version, he would love that. I think he would also like the princess version, not gonna lie. So there was that book. Then there was another one that was kind of similar in this range, and it was called Murder at Ravenglass, which was a word search by Katie Blackwood. And this was so cool. I love this. And then I found something that was actually quite similar this month to this book. It's a literal word search. However, you are basically grabbing clues to solve a murder. Like, it's has a storyline involved, and you are solving a murder as you do these word searches, and there's more information that comes out per every single puzzle and thing like that. And it's just so cool. And as you go through, there's only one clue that you get, and so with the one clue you like scratch off certain names, locations, weapons. It's truly like Clue but in a word search, and I genuinely enjoyed it. It was a fun time. And though honestly the word searches are not that bad, they're not so easy that it's just like for real, but they are also not so hard that you just like give up 10 seconds in. So I really liked that. And then another book that I think is not what you would think it is, but is definitely more book than these other books, I think, was The Sublime to the Ridiculous by Charles Martin Cosgrove. This I gave, oh, by the way, the murder mystery I gave 3 stars, and this one I gave 4 stars. Okay. This was interesting because essentially what this was initially was a series of blog posts, and you could totally tell, like, the second that you open this book. I read the foreword and I saw the formatting and the style, and it was literally type block font, and immediately I was like, oh, what did I get myself into? But the further along I went, I loved the author. I loved their tone. There truly was just such a friendly, let's sit down and chat kind of vibes with these stories. The one thing that really made me hesitant to give, you know, any higher was the fact that these were blog posts about family life and stories. So a lot of the stories actually had no point to them, no conclusion, and it didn't make me obviously give too much of a lower rating in terms of stars because it makes sense. However, I do feel like when you put blog posts to print, there should be some type of story arc, some type of conclusionary element, even if it's not the story itself. Like, even if the story that you were given by your family members was incomplete, not rounded out, maybe give a little bit more as to why you just kind of accepted it like that and it was just a story, other than the actual reason being, well, it was just a story that was added. Okay, sir. I do understand that by now. I truly do, because we get that in every single blog post, and it truly was just like blog post copy paste. I think that's what it was. I think that's why I also didn't give this higher, because there was that formatting issue as well. Now, I probably sound like I'm just like dogpiling on this book. No, I genuinely loved it. I loved the tone. I literally read it out loud with an accent, because you must. If you read this book, you must. It's just there. I had a great time learning all of the different family members, all of their personalities, all of the different stories. And even when he would say, like, this story has no point, it was just another story that was said, and it was just something that I remembered, it kind of just made sense to the type of personality that this guy gives off. And he truly just gives older guy that just wants to tell stories. You know how, like, when you get older, you start to notice that more people in your family, especially the older family members, are just so excited to just share stories. Even if they have 0 point, they will just share stories. They will just go off and they will give you just expository narratives here, there, everywhere. And you're just like, wait, what was the point? What was the conclusion? And they're like, oh, I don't know, or oh, I forget, or oh, there was none. And you're just kind of left, what? But I need to know. But that's kind of like the younger generation's response to the older generations. Yeah, that's just the story. That's just how it was. That's kind of how it is. It's kind of given that vibe, and I kind of loved it. So I gave it a 4-star. Okay, we also had, okay, this one was weird because I didn't know if I was going to, like, call it, like, a book or not. Because it kind of was, kind of wasn't. It was weird. But it's called let me try this again. Epictetus, the Enchiridion, the Handbook, a core text of Stoicism adapted for modern readers by Philip Rellinger, MD. Okay, maybe I need to, like, actually click into the review. Hang on. Oh, that didn't help me. Okay. Oh, it may be Philippe Bellinger, MD. So let's just say I had a class that I was attending, and I'm not sure, I think it might have been a few classes where for my Bible certificate, Stoicism was mentioned. And I was just like, I know nothing about anything. So I just want to see what is Stoicism. Lo and behold, when I went to, I kid you not, like, hand on the Bible, like, I will speak the truth and nothing but the truth. When I went into the paid readers program, when I tell you most of those books were religious, I'm not even kidding. And one of the first books that came up, I kid you not, on the first page, or maybe it was the second page, I'm not entirely sure, was this book. I'm not even kidding. And I was so just thrown for a loop, because I remember one of my professors talking about how it is a thing, but it's not one of the more major religious ideologies and theologies and practices. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is perfect. And I read this and I was just so confused, because there were certain things where I was just like, you know what? I can kind of back this up. But then in other things, I was just like, oh, no. Like, no. And yet I am pretty sure, hang on, I'm pretty sure this 3-star wasn't the full thing. What did I say it was? I said it was a 3.5. Because it, like, truly, there was a whole lot of richness of thought compiled into one book. And it was explained in a way that I think people could understand. The problem was I didn't fully agree with everything, and there were just some reactions that emotional wise, I was just like, nope. It's so, I kind of rated it down a little, and I think that's fine. Then we have the actual books that I got into, okay? And I say actual books because they would be deemed as actual books. So I'll go with, first of all, Because God Loves You, the sports edition. And this was by, because I cannot read that tiny, tiny font. This was by C. Mitchell. Bro, I gave this a 5-star. I loved it. Like I said, I have a nephew. And I don't think I've ever said their religious affiliation. I'm a Christian. My sister's a Christian. We actually met at a Christian college. And it's not to say that just because you go to a Christian college, that means you're a Christian. However, we just happen to both be Christians. Well, I am a Christian now. I think at that time that I met her, I was really struggling in life. I was not truly Christian, I don't think, at that time, but I am now. And so I saw this particular book and I was just like, oh my goodness, like I think this would be the book to get my nephew, because he is such a interesting little being, I swear. I think he's going to love books and be very open and honest about that, but he's also gonna just like be randomly good at sports. And when I say randomly good at sports, I mean like his mom did sports, and you know, his dad is just like randomly athletic at times. I really think he's gonna surprise us by, you know, being into books and sports and all of these different things. Like I truly think there might be a love of soccer somewhere in there. I truly think that, and I mostly think that because of his uncle. His mom and his uncle both played soccer, and they were quite good actually when we were playing just for fun. Like I think there was a 2-on-2, 3-on-3 situation at one point. It was hilarious. But so I think he might be into soccer low-key. So I was reading this book just to see, because I know he's gonna grow up and he's going to have moments of, you know, needing to feel seen. And, you know, he may not ever want to read a book like this, and that is totally fine. But I think there are, you know, young little boys who genuinely believe that there is a God and that he is real and that they can have a relationship with him. And reading this book, you know, it truly does get to their level of understanding, and it meets them there with real life issues that they can have with these characters and these stories and these references of applicable, teachable moments. And it really gets on the adults to be like, hey, read this with your kid. Talk about this with your kid. It actually has questions as well. And, you know, they're just like encouraging the parents of like, hey, it's not just them coming to you. It is okay to meet them where they are and, you know, be there, be present, have conversations, be open and honest, but not be too abrasive or forward. You know, be kind, be gentle, be able to approach them and foster an environment that allows them to come to you. And I just think it really reminds us of that within this book. So 5-star all the way around. Last but certainly not least, I know we're finally getting to the end here, I read Foresight by Craig Ford. Was not expecting this book to come across my feed, nor was I expecting to honestly like it as much as I did. Now, here's the thing. I gave it a 3-star. I did give it a 3-star, but I did clarify that it was a 3.5-star. 3.5 stars. Listen, it was more because, my goodness, formatting. All authors out there, please consider the formatting for the readers. And also, spell check, grammar check, much appreciated. Please and thank you. Sorry. It's just one of those things. It's like, seriously, in this day and age, do we really need to have any errors like that? Like, do there need to be punctuation errors? Do there need to be capitalization errors? Do there need to be, I swear to all goodness, why on earth do we have so much expository information that you could have just made another paragraph? Like, when it comes to dialogue, there is a reason, okay? Formatting is a thing that needs to happen. Formatting is a really good thing to be cognizant of for readers, because you don't notice it when it's happening. You don't notice it as part of the process. It's one of those things you don't notice it, you don't think about it. But boy howdy, when the reviews come back, when the readers just know, like, oh my goodness, there's so much to just look at right now. And it's not one of those things I'm literally pulling I'm pulling Ayana, like, this is too many words.
Why the is this book? First of all, the writing is so tiny. Second of all, why are the pages so filled with so many words? Like, what the
But like, no, seriously. You can agree on certain types of styles of formatting just objectively, that sometimes it is okay to break things into 2 paragraphs. It is okay. Authors, it is okay. Let's hold hands. Let's hold hands, okay? We can get through this together. You can make another paragraph. It's okay. I know. There. It's okay. All right. But anyways, I digress. So this book is interesting because this was actually like what I would consider a book. This was following along a teenage hacker who has kind of a double life. So she has her normal everyday life, and then she has her hacker life. And the way that we follow along these different lives of hers, and then watch as they merge, and seeing her kind of trying to balance it out and making sure that no one gets hurt in the process, because she happened to just go down a side of hacking that is actually dangerous and somewhat illegal, actually not somewhat truly illegal, is quite the story. What I will say is the pacing was a little too quick. The character was a little too stereotypical, and she very much knew that, and she also kind of broke the third wall. What would that be in literature? Because, like, it's not media. You can't... I don't know. She broke a wall by kind of, like, internal monologuing certain things that you just don't... I mean, maybe a teen would think about these things, but they just wouldn't think about the implications of their thought process to the natural world. They would just do. So... there's that. And then there was obviously the formatting. There were a few grammatical errors in there and some spelling errors. So I did notice that. I would highly suggest, like, hey, do a little reread before we press the print file on all of these books. But I will say I greatly enjoyed the story just for what it was, and I will look into the second book. I will. I'm not entirely sure on that, because I don't know if that's a series that I'm gonna want to, like, complete, but it left off on a particular scene with a particular character that I started to kind of root for in one particular element, not in others. Yes. Those were all the books, ladies and gents. We are finally done, bless. I'm done. My voice is done. We are done for today and for this video. Stay so tuned for this month's wrap up, because that's gonna be quite a thing. But before that, we have other videos that are gonna be made, and I am so excited because I think I have an idea of what is about to occur, but I'm not gonna say it just in case it doesn't happen. But I am very excited for what is about to occur if it does indeed occur. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, for taking the time out of your day to do so. I will have links down below, all of the videos, readathons, challenges, all of the things that I have mentioned within this video, as well as all of my socials. So, you know, you guys can find me there, or you cannot find me there and I'd be offline and just living life and potentially reading. who knows what type of reading. Am I reading for the Paid Readers Club or am I reading for myself? Who knows? Is there a differential? Probably not. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for being the absolute best bookish bestie that ever was, is, or ever will be. I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Bye!